Go. All right. So I am Tobi Moyle. For those of you who I don't know very well, nice to meet you. I thought it might be fun and it might be valuable during this time when we are sequestered, so to speak, and we're not able to go out and do some networking events as many of us are accustomed to doing. I thought it might be fun for us to get to know each other a little bit via the internet, via some social media platforms that we all are familiar with. So I'm going to be interviewing people and continuing to interview people. If anybody watching this video would like to have a conversation with me, very much like I'm going to be doing here with my good friend Doug, if this would be interesting to any of you, or if you think it would bring value to your business, I'd be happy, I'd be honored to do an interview with you. Just send me a private message and we can get on the schedule and have a little conversation. So with that said, I am a business coach. I had spent a long career in the banking industry, and then a few years ago, I left that career to go off into the world and help business leaders and help business people, professionals, sales professionals, to really increase their business, to help them write business plans, to help them come up with new strategies and new ways of providing great service and products, and then helping them stick to those plans. And that's where the coaching part comes in. I really help people and in their corner for a set amount of time and help them implement those business plans. So I'm very familiar with sales because it's a world that I've lived in and continue to live in every day, which brings me to my guest today, who is a dear friend of mine who I've known for years. And I call Mr. Doug Kempf the salesperson extraordinaire, because he really is a fantastic salesperson. He's going to share a bit about his background and his story and what he sells and how he got into sales. And it's a great story. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know Doug like I do. So with that said, Doug Kempf, my first question for you is, how did you get into sales to begin with?
Well, I think like most people, I wasn't thinking about sales when I was 16, 17 years of age in high school. Actually, it all got kind of started when I was a teenager and I wanted to be in the radio industry.
Mm.
And when I was in high school, we all had like a counselor back in the day, and they would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Some of us never grew up, so I guess that's why we got that's why we got involved in radio, because we never grew up. But she said we don't have too many people that wanted to be a DJ on radio, and back then, and that was back a ways yet. So people were listening to the radio. It wasn't so much about the podcasting back then. But moving the story on, after high school, I went to a school in St. Louis. That's where I'm from, the St. Louis area. And slowly but surely, I worked for some tiny, tiny radio stations in the Midwest, Missouri and Illinois. It was so small that we closed at midnight with the national anthem. Wow. I believe we played the national anthem at midnight, and I had to clean up because there was nobody else coming into the radio station until 6 a.m. when the morning people came.
Wow.
But after a couple of those small stations, I did go to it was still small, but we went to a station in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It was called Q99. It was kind of a top 40 rock and roll station. And it was actually probably one of the times that I enjoyed working the most, I think, because when you play music that you like, you kind of get into it. But
yeah,
everybody assumes that if you're at a country radio station, you like country radio, and that's not always the truth.
Right.
But I was there for about 2.5 years, and I just always had this huge, probably the reason I got involved in sales is I wanted to be in a top 50 market, or I wanted to be on morning drive. So I always had that drive to do the impossible, and anything with entertainment, whether it's a speaker, being on the air, full of competition and lots of tapes, resumes all over the place. And I finally went to North Carolina, and I just kind of got a little bit homesick, and I I don't know. I think briefly I went back to St. Louis, and I've always had, I always thought Florida would be the place that I would always like to go. Like everybody, the weather, the beaches, the theme parks, and what have you. So
Mm-hmm.
I just said, I'm not going to wait till I'm 65, 70 to retire in Florida. I'm going to move down there at a real young age. I think it was like 24, 25, early 90s. And I went down there, Toby. I think it's one of my best sales, one of my better sales ever was to go to Florida without knowing a soul.
Wow.
I think my mom told me I sold like $2,000 worth of baseball cards, went down there in a not so great car, didn't know anybody.
Wow.
And I parked my car in Daytona Beach, Florida on A1A and got a room for, I think it was 30 days. And then I took a map and I just circled like a 200-mile radius from Daytona to West Palm Beach. And I said, I'm going to apply in person, cold call. And this was way before we all did emails. So a lot of mailing. So that was a lot of selling. And I didn't know anybody at the time. And getting on the air was a tough thing because most of the stations back then were mom and pop radio. They were family owned. So if you weren't a cousin or some kind of keen, you could not get on the air except for overnights. And
wow.
Long story short, there was a city called Rockledge, Florida, near Cocoa Beach. And it's been so long ago, but I think I just went in person with the tape, and the program director, he said, we do have an opening from midnight to 6, but you probably don't want to deal with midnight to 6. But coming from St. Louis, I was excited just to say anybody, hey, would you want to do this and see if they wanted to see, how it sounded. And I did not know anything about country. The station was called 102.7 FM, the Hit Kicker. And I was like always in the Boston and REO Speedwagon and contemporary music from the 70s, 80s. So this was all brand new country, but Florida, we all think of palm trees. At Florida, there's a lot of people that like country music in Florida. Yeah. And long story, somewhat short, he said, I'll give you 30 days. For 30 days, I worked from 11:30 at night to like 6:30 in the morning.
Wow.
It was a long time. And then going back to a hotel room where you didn't know anybody. And then after 30 days, he finally said, we'll give you the job.
Nice.
So I think I did overnights for like 2 years at this place called the Hit Kicker.
Wow.
And I advanced to 7 to midnight. And then there were some other radio stations. I went to Gainesville briefly. And that's actually how I kind of got into sales. It was another country station, Gator Country. And this guy was Mel Clark, real tall guy. He just had a sit-down meeting with me. And he said, Doug, this on-air thing, there's only very few people that make it like Howard on the air. He goes, you should just get into sales. And I had this tough thing about, hey, I'm on air, man. I'm not into selling and all that. I had 2 or 3 other people in the last month who were saying, you really should do this because you're young. You could have a big career. So I kind of gave in and I said, let's forget about the on air. Yeah, we'll go into sales. And really being on the air really helped me to become a salesperson. And I have people were saying, well, what do you mean? And I think a lot of it was on the telephone, and I would just pretend like I was talking in a studio, and rather than having a microphone like you have right now, I would talk on the telephone kind of like the same way I would talk to people on the air. And it was nervous the first year going out to talk to complete strangers. With the funny thing about when you're a disc jockey or you're on the air, everybody loves you. Like they like to shake your hand. When you become a salesperson, it's kind of weird how people kind of forget you, even though you're the same person.
Wow.
And I said the first year I was really intimidated about going out to talk to people about, hey, would you like to go on the air? Gator Country, I think it was 102.7 FM. but about, it's just like riding a bike. After about 6 or 7 months, you just got where you understood people are not going to enjoy talking to you right away, but things take time. And after the Gator Country, I started moving to radio stations for sales jobs. One was in Kissimmee, Florida, in the Orlando market. It was a small theme park called Old Town. And it was just before, I think, Wolfman Jack actually had some kind of ownership. Anyway, it was a very funny radio station, almost like WKRP in Cincinnati, with Lonnie Anderson and all the characters. I think it was like 9 guys and 1 lady at the radio station.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody came and gone as they pleased. There was no set hours.
Right.
But I was selling, but we did everything. Every 2 or 3 hours, it was a complete different format. So it was like, I call it a smorgasbord of radio.
Wow.
We had a little bit like 104.1 Real Talk Radio, and then it turned into sports, then it turned into music, whatever we could sell.
Wow.
That's what was going on. But I really learned a lot there, and I'm trying to think where I went after Old Town. Long story short,
you were selling advertising at that point.
Selling advertising. We used to call it selling air on the radio stations. But all in all, there was a guy in Maitland, Florida, near Winter Park that I met. His name was Rex. And he owned a small billboard company. And I don't know exactly how we met, but we did hook up. I went to his house. We became pretty good friends. And he said, would you like to get out of radio and sell billboards? At least they could see it.
Yeah.
You know, radio, you can't. Yeah, you know, they see this I-4 billboard and there's 60, 70,000 cars going by it. And at least people believe more with their eyes than what they hear.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I said, okay, we'll do that. And I started selling his inventory, and he didn't have a whole lot of inventory. It wasn't like Clear Channel or some national outdoor company, but it was owned by one of the most popular attorneys in Orlando. Just leave it at that. And slowly but surely, they started building more billboards in the Orlando area. And I one of the biggest things he said, I know you're good in sales, Doug, because you sold a billboard that wasn't even up. In other words, it was being the city ordinances of Altamont Springs and the state takes a long time, anything with the government. Okay. And he said, but it should be up in about 3 or 4 months. I said, well, aren't people going to want to see what it looks like? But we did a picture, and it was a gym. It was Gold's Gym off of 436, right off of I-4 by the Altamont Mall. And I sold that. That was probably one of my best sales because I was selling something they couldn't see. But it did go up, and they were happy campers. Long story short, he introduced me to a friend of his that worked for, I guess they changed their name so often, but it was like CBS Outdoor, 3M Media. Anyway, I met this lady, and she was a great lady. Her name was Cecilia. And she gave me opportunity to work and sell billboards with somebody that had lots of billboards in Orlando. And that worked out great. And I did it for a couple of years. And they put me on this opportunity on I-75 from the Georgia line all the way down to Wesley Chapel near Tampa. And I sold billboards on the interstate. So I got to meet some very interesting people off the interstate of 75. And anybody knows from Ocala north, it's a whole different part of Florida than Miami and Tampa. So I really got to know, I've always said from my age, I don't think I've talked to more strangers about advertising than probably just about anybody, either on telephone or in person. Yeah. I've always enjoyed what most people don't like to do. I was always more of a cold caller. Yeah. Because there was little pieces in 15 years that I used to work for a solar company in Sanford, Florida. And I got to hear some really great salespeople that didn't sell advertising. And
Yeah. You've had a lot of different experiences, like in selling, different things in different ways. You're a great salesperson, so I will brag on you. So those
yeah.
of you who don't know me, I was a salesperson myself for many years, and then led very successful teams of salespeople for my entire career. So I've worked with and have had worked for me hundreds and thousands of salespeople over the years. And so I can identify a great salesperson pretty darn quick, if I do say so myself, from like I said, leading and hiring a lot of and recruiting a lot of salespeople. And you're a great salesperson for a lot of reasons. You hit on one of them right there, which is that you're not afraid to pick up the phone. You do it. You've done it for your whole life, right? You call people. Some people refer to it nowadays as cold calling, like you said. But you call, you actually call, you follow up with people, you're not afraid to walk into you'll literally on the phone, and then you'll also just walk in. You actually like walking in and meeting people, interacting with them. Whereas other people be scared to death. I couldn't, beg people to go and make calls like you make every single day, and you're consistent about it. So you work, and you're a self-starter. So many people, when they're a consultant like you are, because I know you sell for different companies at different times, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
you just do it. I mean, how many people, when they're left to their own devices, find other things to do, and you work. You're a hustler, you're a grinder. And I say that because I know that you're very busy right now, and rightfully so. I know there's some companies that you're a rare commodity. You're that unicorn of a salesperson that likes to call. You're good at it, and you're successful at it. So if anyone's watching this and they need a really fantastic salesperson or a sales leader, I've said to Doug for a long time in our private conversations, because Doug has successfully helped me in my business as a coach. I also do a lot of speaking, so seminars, workshops, kind of motivational speaking in the business world. And Doug has gotten me some really great speaking opportunities as well as clients. And so I know he does a great job because he's helped me, but he's also helped some other companies that I've connected him with. So if anyone's watching this and they're looking for a top-notch salesperson, or like I've told him, I think he should really do more on the sales leading side. I know he's managed other salespeople and led sales teams before, but I think, bringing Doug as a consultant or as a manager into your company, and allowing Doug to train some of your salespeople and show the ropes to your sales team, I think is a really good use of you, Doug, and how people could leverage you. Because rather than even just having one Doug, if they can bring you in and have them help their sales organization, then they can have a lot of Dougs. That said, I still think what you have is not something that can always be trained or be taught, which is you have the DNA of someone, like you mentioned a little bit ago. You'll take chances, you follow through. You just have that 1 in a million thing that you'll take action and follow through. So it's all good. It's all, to your credit. But yeah, if anyone's watching this and they're like looking for that person that would actually follow up and make the calls and do all that stuff, you're that rare breed of person. So I know you're busy right now, but I know sometimes you have contracts that come up or something changes in your schedule. And that's why there again, while we're doing these interviews right now, while I'm trying to get people's names out there, because things will change with the market, right? We're going to go back, things will go back to normal, if you will. And when that does happen, or even now, maybe somebody's got a product or service that, where they have something that they need somebody like you to be on their team. So anyways, what do you think? Why do you think some people, Doug, aren't successful in sales and some people are? Why is that? Some people just aren't good at sales.
Well, I've read a lot of books about sales.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's nothing where you are born to be a salesperson. I think it's just like everything. I always compare, I think, sports and selling is so much alike. Whether it's baseball, football, riding a motorcycle, playing golf, or what have you. Practice. I do think some people's DNA is a little bit more into sales than others.
Yeah.
You were talking about your business, and any type of sales, I would always say probably the most important thing to do, probably missing a few things, but is to get somebody's attention. Because if you don't get their attention, the price and the follow-up doesn't really matter. And in the last couple of years, I've been helping you and some other people, not just with traditional advertising, and they always ask. I actually met a lady from Tampa Bay, and she was a news anchor recently. Won't get into names and that, but she said, I've been looking for a salesperson for 6 months. And this is somebody that's been on like 11 o'clock news, and they just freak out about selling because it's not, just like you and I maybe won't feel too comfortable about being on the 11 o'clock news in front of a camera. Other people feel the same way with selling. Long story, we started talking, and she said, I would love for you to start helping me with my business. And she was, what do you think it would take? And I go, first thing, we're going to start with the basics, your website. People, their attention span's not going to be too long, so it needs to be something, whether you send them an email, something quick, and it will get their attention. Right. She's used to sending demo tapes, so I told her maybe like a 60-second demo tape. And let's just get their attention. And the main thing with all this, and I'm reading more probably because of the times that we're in, or reading books that I haven't read in 5 or 7 years, is you want them to ask you questions. Because if the dialogue isn't going back and forth, and if the salesperson's the only one that's really doing most of the talking, then that's not a good thing. Right. I just think, even if it's not something you want to hear, as long as they're coming back with you with an email, a phone call, a text, if they're communicating some way, then there's still a shot at doing business together. Yep. Maybe sometime we'll talk a little bit more about follow-up and what have you, but I think since I was on the radio way back in the 80s, and now I see everybody likes to be like a rock star per se. Now, with all these podcasts and what have you, some of it, makes me laugh and grin about that everybody wants to be now a sales expert per se, right, and how you do things. But
it's kind of funny. Everybody thinks they're expert at all these things, but then some people haven't really done much. You know what I mean? It's like the old, it's funny to me, some people, but we all can learn from each other, no question. So in our next just few minutes here, and I'll let you get back to work, couple questions for you. One is, do you have any tips for maybe somebody that's watching that's like new into sales? I work, as you know, with a lot of real estate clients and a lot of loan officers in the mortgage business. Do you have any tips for people when it comes to that cold calling word that I hate, but when it comes to reaching out to someone, let's say that you don't know, a prospect, maybe somebody that a real estate agent wants to reach out to because they clicked on their website and they have a lead, or what they'd call a lead now, and now they want to reach out. Are there any pieces of advice you would give on that very first thing that you say? Do you just go straight to, what do? You introduce yourself in a special way? Do you ask a question typically? Like, what's your kind of, I don't know, your script, or how do you start off those cold conversations?
Well, one of the things I'm a big believer in is I think you got to love what you sell. You got to believe in it. There's a lot of people that sell things that they don't really believe in. And that's the first thing. Do you really have some passion? I think that's with any type of a job. Yep. If you have passion, if it's a chore to get up and say, oh, I got to do this for 8 or 9 hours, it's probably not going to be something you're going to enjoy talking about to strangers about. Yeah. That being said, I treat everybody, it's weird because I've been talking to so many people in the last 25 years, swimming pool, roofing companies, you name it, even funeral homes. I don't really have a set script or anything. I just treat them all. Alice is Alice, Tobi's Tobi. You have to introduce yourself, but typically I like words kind of like Hi, Mrs. Smith. Would you entertain a billboard on I-4? I like little things like entertain. I'm just circling. I'm just circling back with you, Mr. Jones, about what you and I were talking about in September, because you said it was important, but the timing wasn't just right.
Yep.
I think timing does have a lot to do with things. But I think with all the technology, I still think, even myself, we get a little bit scared of not picking up the old telephone and just getting an old-fashioned phone call.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of things with technology. You might think they're talking about something else on a quick text or a quick email. But if you have a 10, 15-minute phone call, you pretty much know if they're interested, not interested, or what their main questions are going to be. So I guess do a little bit. I don't want to bore people with do a little bit of research.
Yeah, no,
about
it's
the
valuable.
Company.
Yeah, you start a conversation. You're always pretty comfortable. You kind of just find some way to get a conversation going, a dialogue going, you know, talk to them like a normal friend, like you talk to a friend or something, right?
Yep. I remember even back to the radio days, when I got into sales, I would still say I'm a broadcaster, even though I wasn't technically on the air. But I had a boss who says, just tell me you're one of the broadcasters, because everybody likes to talk to the broadcaster. Don't say account executive. Nobody wants to talk to the. So we usually say, this is Doug Kempf. I'm talking to you about 105.9, Sunny FM, whatever the case might be. And it just kind of worked. You know, if they don't give you 30 to 60 seconds, you'll never get anywhere. So I'm a true believer in being yourself.
Yeah.
I think people on the air, they're always somebody that they're not. I think just be yourself and do what comes natural and go by your gut. I'm a big believer in going by your gut. And change is good. Change is tough, as you and I know. Even in your business, people don't always grow up or get up in the morning and say, honey, I think I need 50 days of a coach to help me with my life, my social life, my body, making more money. People they're just not that way, but we do need changes. And just like your ladder with your company, it says life is a ladder. Slowly but surely, we'll take the steps and reach to the top.
Yeah, the other day, you and I are friends. And so one of the things we talk a lot about is books, because we both like to read and learn. And so we both appreciate a good author and a good book. And I was reading the other day something that it was really well put, talking about change. And it said, to your point, it said, change is great, but, you know, change, even the word evokes like a visceral response in people that can be negative. It's like humans are, you know, we're not hardwired, I always say, to like change. It's just, you might be able to accept it, but in our gut, you know, change is like, we like to do things the way we know how to do them. We get comfortable.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, we get in the comfort zone. And this author, I thought it was well put. He said, I don't even like to use the word change. He said, I just like to say that we're making some small tweaks, or that we're, you know, trying some different things. He goes, the word change in and of itself, you know, rather than saying we're going to make this major change, like you said, it's taken a step towards trying something different, or an adjustment is another word he used, which I like. He said, let's not say we're making changes. We're just making adjustments in the way that we're doing things. And I like that, you know, it's a process, hence the ladder, you know, life is a ladder.
Kind of like the times we're living right now with this coronavirus. People that are in sales, what are we doing? I had somebody last week. I actually sold something last week. That's kind of interesting and fun. I mean, during the times, it was a dentist over. There was a dentist over in Tampa Bay, and it just comes to show you people are interested, even with all this that's going on in the world. He still came back and he said, if we could do it for this under these terms, Doug, I'd like to do it, because I think in a couple of months, we'll be back to some normalcy, and I don't want to lose that location because of 60 days of what we're dealing with.
Can you answer me this, Doug? I have had so many people, my clients that I talk to every day, that when I tell them that some of my other clients are still selling or still having success in their business, granted, everybody's business is a little different, right? So right now there's some people that are really struggling, and then there are other people that are killing it. So, but that said, when it comes to sales, a real specific question, that sale that you made in the midst of everything going on, was that somebody that you initiated a new call to, with someone you already came to, and it just kind of came through to fruition and you inked the deal then? Was it, are you still calling people through, selling, closing deals?
You're breaking up. Yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully
sorry.
you were breaking up just a bit, but no,
Yep.
it's good. I think I hear you now.
Okay.
All in all, if I hear you right, I think you were asking me, was that dentist somebody that you were calling on? I think I called on him maybe about 7-8 days before this coronavirus really got started.
Yep.
But I really thought it was a dead dinosaur when he didn't make a decision, and then the NBA was canceling, baseball season was gone for spring training, and who knows, whatever, the Masters.
Right.
And but I typed away, and I just said, hey, sorry to bother you. I know, is your family okay? But I still wanted to get back to business a little bit. I just said, do you still want to talk about that location? And he said, well, if we could do it under these terms, I'd like to get that billboard. So if you still have something that people are interested in, but I think now, between now and whenever, I don't know, when or this ever, who's going to decide the coronavirus? We can all go back to Disney World. We can all go to the beaches. You know, who's going to, I guess they'll come away and they'll decide, hopefully in a month or two. But all in all, I think now is a great time to be emailing people. I think the phone, even though we just talked about how important the phone is, I think the phone, if you haven't talked to somebody in 60 days or ever, might be a little bit harsh, a little bit on the phone. I think emails wouldn't be a bad thing for the next 30 days because people are going to be on their computer and their phones more often. They're not going to be driving as much.
That's right.
You can only watch the Three Stooges and old movies at nights for so long.
Right.
So people will probably be on their computer and phone. So I think a little email. Actually, there's a friend of ours that has a direct mail business in Orlando, and I actually got him a lead last week. Right. Granted, I might call 50 people, and only one person called me back, but they called me back. And they said, we are interested, maybe not this month, but come May, if this virus thing kind of gets settled down a little bit or completely goes away. Forgot what business it was, but I gave Ron, our friend Ron, a phone number, and he gives me, some chicken wings if we sell it or whatever. But I think during this time, businesses aren't just closed.
Right.
And I think even my dad was always in sales. Whatever you do now, you may benefit from June or July anyway. Planting the old seeds, therapy.
Right. That's right.
So if you like say, I'm not going to do anything until the coronavirus goes away, you might be not doing anything till the middle of June. And then when it does finally go away, you haven't done anything for 2.5 months. And then you're really, really up to you know what.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's great advice. Really.
All in all, I think keep working. I don't think you have to kill yourself. I think a lot of salespeople are going to be working from their house.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think, even though I don't think there's nothing wrong with cold calling, I think right now that's off limits. I think half the offices are on a skeleton staff, if not closed. But I do think emails, maybe a simple text would not be too bad.
Yeah.
And hopefully in 45, 50 days, this will come down.
Yeah.
And we can get back to some normalcy. But I just think it's all just always a numbers game.
Yeah.
And,
well, I appreciate the work and the help that you've given me, Doug. And like I said, I encourage people to connect with you and reach out. You're very well connected. You live in Florida now, which I should have said in the beginning. But you're well connected, not only across the Southeast, but you know a lot of people all across the country. So so we'll be talking more. And Doug, obviously beneath this video, I'll make sure I spell your name, and it's on the video here too, but I'll kind of put your phone number and ways to get in touch with you.
Tobi with an I.
Toby
Kempf
with an I
F.
over here. That's right.
Kempf with an
And
F. Yeah.
Doug Kempf, yeah, you're right. Kempf with an F, Toby with an I.
Yeah.
And we'll, like I said, there's a last little plug for if anybody wants to come on and have a conversation with me, just like we're doing on this video. Send me a message, or if you know someone that you think would benefit from a conversation, even if I don't know them personally. I love to hear about people's backgrounds and their business, and I just love people. So so I'll help any way I can, certainly. And it only takes one person in the audience, as you've always said, Doug. Hey, you might talk to 50 people or 50,000 people, whatever it is. You might be in a small audience or a big audience, or somebody might watch a video that you and I do, and you might get a new prospect out of it, a new client, a new whatever. So you just never know. You know, you got to put it out there. You got to be in it to win it, as they always say. So you at least got to be in it. But with that said, I will, any last thing you want to say, Doug, before we wrap this video up?
I don't know. I guess I'm gonna need to wash my hands. It's been a half an hour or something.
Yeah, right. You're right.
I should
Go
have said
spray
that,
the
but,
Lysol down and sanitize.
yeah.
Stay in your room by
No,
yourself. Okay.
I hope everybody is doing it right, and hopefully we can get over this. Hopefully maybe we'll become a better golfer, since there's so much idle time right now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no.
I don't think they've closed the golf courses yet, but give them time.
I don't know exactly. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
who knows, right? Crazy
But
times.
I look forward to working with you again with lifeisladder.com, and we'd be happy to talk to people. I think between both of us, 50 years of selling experience, surely we know one thing or two, right?
That's right. You made it this far, right? All right, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.